Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for another session of the oh, that was weird. Of the Elder Series. Tonight we have AC and AJ No Braid speaking with us tonight, talking about powwows, and I'm very excited to hear from them. So without further ado, I'll let them take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Avanelle No Braid, but my nickname is AJ. I'm an enrolled member of the three affiliated tribes, the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. And here is my husband.
Hello, my name's AC No Braid, and I'm Oglala Lakota from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I'd like to say welcome to everybody that's on listening, and we'll give a little introduction of ourselves. Go ahead.
So before we get into that part, I just want to address the issue. What is a powwow? So a powwow is a social gathering. And not all tribes participate in powwows, but the family I came from, we are longtime dancers. So it was kind of a given that I was going to participate in powwows. There are traditional powwows, there are fundraiser powwows, and then you have your contest powwows where people compete for prize money. When I first started dancing, I was about 5 years of age. My grandparents raised me in North Dakota, and my grandma was very traditional and wanted to make sure that I followed protocols in order to dance. So she made sure that I had the right to wear an eagle feather and also my Indian name. And that happened at White Shield Celebration. My goodness, I'm going to be dating myself, probably back in the early 70s, maybe 72 or 73 is when that happened. And it was done publicly so that everybody would know that I had my Indian name and I have the right to wear an eagle feather and that I was able to be on that dance floor and take part. So all of that was taken care of. And there was a giveaway, and there was a veteran named Bill Dean who gave me the right to wear my eagle feather. And then there was an older Arikara elder who gave me my Indian name at that time was Little Otter Shkatapatyanet. When I got older, they gave me a different name, but I can get into that later. But you want to talk about when you were young and how you got
Well, I
started?
started dancing in grade school. I remember that. My grandma Mildred used to take us to like churches, um, boys club, things like that, and do performances for people. In Rapid City, South Dakota, we were in the parade every year, on that quite a few times. But that's how I started dancing, was with my grandma. My grandpa Lawrence used to play Canyon records in the living room, and we danced to them. But that was back a long time ago. And that's how I started dancing. And as time went on, the some of the schools I went to had dance clubs. So I joined those, and throughout middle school, uh, high school, I was just dancing, and I've been traveling all over. I think I might have started traveling when I was in 16, 17 with a drum group called Tatanka Singers, late Tonto Black Bear. But yeah, like my wife was saying, there's different types of powwows. Your social powwows, your contest powwows. Sometimes some people have, I don't know how it is all over the Americas and Canada as far as that goes, but sometimes families will have a little gathering and invite some singers, and they might give Indian names away or put plumes and feathers on people, and or if someone came home from college or something. There's different types of powwows, but nowadays a majority of them are contest powwows. If you like to compete, that's how I am. I like to compete in that way my whole life in anything I've done. So I like going to powwows, though. I like the music. I like the friendships. I've made a lot of friends out there, and when you're out there, make friends, a lot of friends. Plus, you get to see America. You get to travel to different reservations, see how their customs are, and their protocols of things that they do. You'll be surprised that a lot of places are kind of similar. I mean, there's some that have really different cultures, different ways of ceremonies and powwows, but a lot of it has kind of really focused around the powwow world nowadays, what people know of them as today. So that's how I kind of got started, was with my grandma Mildred and my grandpa Lawrence and my grandpa Jim. And then I had a grandpa named Grandpa Howe. Used to go out in Grass Creek and go to his house, and he would sing and we would dance. Those were versions of powwows to us back then. And those were gatherings. We gathered with relatives and sing and dance, eat. Yeah.
Sing and dance and eat.
Yeah.
That's very important. So Ace grew up in South Dakota, and from what I remember, you lived in Rapid City and also lived on the Pine Ridge Reservation, so he was kind of back and forth. Whereas I lived in Denver during my formative years. So after my grandparents raised me, I ended up moving in with my parent in Denver. And so I spent a lot of time at the Indian Center. The old Denver Indian Center was on Gaylord. And so a lot of the weekends we were there. And that's where I spent a lot of my time learning how to dance and getting used to being out in front of people. There is an older woman by the name of Carmen Claremont. She has a twin sister named Camille. So Carmen and Camille Claremont, I used to dance with them. I used to dance between them during a lot of the intertribals, and they were teaching me how to do different types of songs like round dance. And the Indian Center also had like a little powwow club. So when I was in 6th grade, we traveled to Las Vegas to go to a powwow there. So throughout our lives, we were able to make a lot of friends and actually have some adopted family members because of powwows. And we met at a powwow when we were in our teens. So when I was about 16, I met up with AC at Lame Deer Powwow on a July 4th weekend in Montana. And we started dating back then. When we got a little bit older, we kind of went our own separate ways. And I went into the military. I'm a U.S. Army veteran as well as AC. I went into the military, and I always tease him and say that he joined after I did because he was looking for me. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
But when I got out of the military, I traveled for a little bit, and I lived on Rosebud Reservation with my good friend Gracie, her many horses. And we went to a different powwow in Rapid City, and that's where I met up with AC again because he had just gotten out just before that summer started. So we kind of picked up where we left off as far as dating, and we've been together ever since.
Yep.
So we've traveled to powwows. Our daughters both dance. We made sure that they had, their outfits ready to go. And they have worn some of my old beadwork. Part of the big thing when you're a powwow dancer is making sure that you've got the right set of beadwork for the style of dance that you're dancing. For the women, you've got women's traditional, women's jingle, women's fancy. And so with those styles of dance, there is a particular set of beadwork that you wear with that. Like for women's fancy, normally they have beaded capes, and women's jingle, some of them do have beaded capes also. And in women's traditional, sometimes depending on the dancer, if you've got a traditional buckskin dress, you have a very large cape that's like fully beaded. I learned how to bead when I was 14. And from that time forward, I have beaded a lot of my own outfits as well as for family members and my husband, my daughters. It takes commitment to be a powwow dancer and create those beaded items. And then as your kids grow, you're going to need to make more beaded items as they grow. Like
they're going to outgrow them.
Yeah, they're going to outgrow the
'em and move.
moccasins.
So
And
it's if you do it all the time and your family's involved in it and you're traveling it together and stuff, you will constantly be fixing things or making them larger, and it never stops. I mean, it just keeps going and going, and it's fun. It's like anything in life. I don't know. Let's say you're a motocross bike racer or something, or a ballerina dancer. You got to commit to it, and you give your time to it, and especially for your family, if your family's involved in it, you want to bring your littler ones in and to the powwow circle, and you want them to have fun and just dance and have fun. And but it takes a lot. You got to have, like my wife is saying, the different styles of dancing. You got your traditional dancers, you have your grass dancers, you have your fancy dancers, you have woodland dancers now. I mean, a lot of other tribes are starting to bring their style or cultural style of dancing back, which is great because not everybody that's the Omaha style or dressed the Omaha style of dance. It was more the bustle and head roach and things like that was more of the plains people, the plains tribes. But if you have any questions, start putting them out there, because I know I'm running out of things to say about myself. I got a whole bunch I could say, but yeah.
Well, one
you
thing
have any
about
questions?
powwow styles, there's also northern and southern styles of dance. So that's one thing to consider. The advantage I had growing up in Denver is being centrally located. I was able to see both southern styles and northern styles because there's such a mixture of tribes in Denver. And I like to dance to southern drums. They have a different type of beat. And I notice when some people who aren't familiar with that, they kind of have a hard time figuring out when the honor beats are going to happen or when the Southern song is going to stop because they're not used to hearing that. So there's a lot of things you need to pick up on. Practicing is always very important. AC mentioned that, his grandparents had him dance early on in performances and things. When I was little, my grandpa used to sing and I would dance around in the living room around a laundry basket. And we have a picture of it somewhere, but that's how I practiced. And then once I got a little bit older, when I was in high school, I used to practice quite a bit when I was fancy shawl, but you
Yeah,
commit
there's
to it.
a lot of training. I mean, people think, I mean, it could be. You could just dance once, twice, three times a year at your local reservation or community gathering of some sort. But if you're out there, like I said, in the contest, um, if you want to be competitive and you want to go out and win trophies and jackets and things, you have to train, you have to run, you have to eat healthy. It's a very physical sport, even though it's traditional. You still got different muscles you use, other than like a grass dancer might use different we all use different muscles. It's not the same dancing. I mean, fancy dancers, grass dancers, jingle dress dancers, um, they're you have to train if you want to be competitive, and constantly practice every day, commit to it. Well, like the social dancing, you could go out there and dance, and they have nowadays they're having round dances, which was they did the same thing back in our younger days, but our round dances were at the powwow. They weren't separate. They would have round dances, rabbit dances. Those are social dances, and it's not all the time did you have a intertribal. It wasn't always intertribals. There was a lot of them, but sometimes they would throw those social dances in there. But yeah, it's pretty fun to, even up in my age now that I'm getting a little bit older, I still like to go to powwows and dance, and getting a little bit slower, but I still like it.
We're still in it.
Yeah, we're still in the game. No. But
We're still in the game. I think I saw someone ask a question in the chat. Let me pull that up real quick. We have a question. What is the biggest change in powwows other than sizes? Also, what is something you miss that they do during past powwows? Ooh, what is the biggest change in powwows other than sizes? I'm going to say the dance categories. So when I first started dancing, the category names were different. So I don't remember if we really had tiny tots, but now they call the junior categories juniors. Those are like kids in elementary school. But back in my day, we called them little boys and little girls categories. And the junior categories was actually what is now known as the teen categories. And then you just had your adult, which was basically 18 and over, and that was it. But nowadays, you've got your junior adults, which could be what, 18
Senior.
to 39.
Not senior adult.
Senior adults, 40 to age 55. And then depending on where you go, golden age could be age 56 and up, or it could be 60 and over. So right now we're in golden age categories.
I think they have, like, nowadays they're going with the platinum age.
Oh yeah,
which
living
is like
legends.
living
also.
legends.
Yeah, like 70 and
Yeah,
above.
70 and over.
And the next question was, what is something you missed that they do during past powwows? I remember that. Well, I remember the MCs of the older years back in the 80s. The MCs used to explain things, protocols, and talk about things that you should or shouldn't do. And I'm not hearing that so much nowadays. What kind
No.
of changes?
Well, the changes for me is going from like the old style of arbors, the outdoor powwows. It's all about indoor powwows now, whereas, you know, back when I was in junior high, high school, traveling around, they were outdoor powwows. They were pine bough arbors. People would sit under them, and nowadays it's indoors. You got to go in, dance on concrete. That's hard on your legs, your knees. But I miss the outside powwows, the outside powwows. Those are more fun, I think.
Or waking up the next morning roasting hot in a tent and crawling out.
I don't miss that, no. But that was one. Those were a different time. You used to pack up your whole car. You would have a tent in there, a cook stove, your chairs, your blankets, sleeping bags, whatever, all that in a truck or a car, and you go to the powwow and you camp out for 3 days. And but
he
the
told me a
ones
story
that,
one time about eating canned goods. He pack his food in his bag.
yeah, but the other thing I miss about powwows is that the supper break. They used to stop the powwow, and either the community or a family would feed, and you had to have a lot of food because there was a lot of people that would show up to these powwows and go get in line and get your evening meal, and then get ready and go back in grand entry and do your contest again that night or dance around. And they would go till some powwows would be like 1, 2 in the morning, maybe. That's just dancing. That's not contesting or not. That's just dancing. But nowadays, like I said, it's um almost all the large powwows that are everybody likes to go to are indoors,
In the air conditioning.
and they're air conditioned, and they get done by 10 o'clock, 11.
And sometimes that could be because of the venue that they're in. Like I know for Denver March Powwow, there's a certain time limit that they have, and they need to vacate the building or else they get charged even more if they go
Yeah.
past a certain time. So that
But-
might have something to do with.
But that was one of the things. And what was the other question? Was the
That was
biggest
the
change?
part that we just answered, but here's a different question. What's socializing like at powwows?
Socializing.
So back in my day, everybody used to walk around, like the teens, you'd walk around and check each other out and then tell your friend, oh, my friend likes your friend, and then you go and talk. But nowadays, it's a whole different ball game, especially with social media. That's really changed a lot. Like when we went to powwows when we were younger, we wouldn't see each other until like hey, where are you going in 2 weekends or whatever?
Yeah.
Or
What's the
maybe
next
we
mall
would
you're
write
going to?
letters. Yeah. But nowadays on social media, you can probably,
You know, back compared to what it is today, you you go to a powwow and you may see your friend at the powwow and visit with them for a little bit. Wherever they're sitting, you sit down with them and talk for maybe, you know, 20, 30 minutes, and then you go back to where you're sitting. Socializing back then was you would go to people's camps. They would camp everywhere. So you go to your friend's camp and sit and you visit them or joke around, and they're eating and you eat with them, or they come to your camp, your family's camp, and you do the same thing. That's one of the big changes I see, is that they're still socializing, there's still people mingling, but not at the level of where you're going to someone's camp and sitting at their visiting with their mom, their dad, their brothers, their sisters, you know. And sometimes yeah, if you're snag, you go to their camp and you sit and visit with them, because that's how some of the parents got to know you. I mean, they got to visit with you, you know, the girl or the boy. So
that's one thing I kind of miss from powwows a long time ago is the amount of feeds that would happen. You could go someplace and not have to worry about eating for the weekend because somebody was always feeding.
yeah.
So when we went up to Canada to Sioux Valley,
Oh yeah.
it was such a nice atmosphere. They had the most beautiful campgrounds I've ever seen. It was green, freshly cut, and people were coming to our camping area and saying, "Come eat. We're feeding over here." And I'm like, wow, I haven't had that in a long
Yeah.
time. So it's really nice. Kind of took me back to powwows from a long time ago. We have a couple more questions. Um, Somebody asked, what were the most memorable specials you have attended? What were the most memorable specials you've attended? Well, off the top of my head, there was a young woman who was being honored by her family. She was a veteran. And so they had a special for women veterans, and they were giving away a horse for that special. So it was memorable for me because I was fortunate enough to win it. So I won a horse and a horse mask that the horse was wearing as well, which I still have. It's very special to me. I keep it packed away because I don't want anything to happen to it. It's made out of natural dyes and it's very precious. So that was a very memorable experience for me. Do you have any?
I I can't really say one specific, because like I said, I've made a lot of friends on the Powwow Trail. So going to people's reservations or communities and celebrating with them and seeing them, just to visit them. And there's some that aren't alive no more, that, you know, I used to see all the time, or go to their powwows, go up north or Montana or something, and I would run into them. So I can't really say there's a special one. They've all been fun. They've all hold a special place in my heart, and because there's so many people. If you're a powwow dancer, if any of you out there listening dance, travel. Take a little bit of time off, you know. School, work, and all that's very important. Don't get me wrong, but take some time and go somewhere where you've never been. You'll be surprised at how they'll take care of you sometimes.
When you travel, you get to make all types of new connections.
Yeah.
And we've got lifelong friends that we've met because of powwow, and we have adopted family members that have that's happened because of people that we've met throughout powwow. So for
I take that back there. I guess a real memorable one was, like my wife was saying, you know, adopting family. Um, I went down to Etha, Wyoming, and I hunkad, which it means is I adopted somebody as my son, and his name is Keegan. And that was that's a great honor for somebody to come up to you and ask you to adopt their kid, their child. So they're showing their respect to you by telling you, you know, you're honorable, or however they look at it, however they see what they see. But yeah, that they gave me this big old buffalo robe and made me dance in the hot sun with it on, and it was a round dance, and but I think that was probably the top, maybe one of the top memorable ones. Other, you know, seeing my babies, Lara and Larissa, dance for the first time in the arena at Denver March Powwow. So
Our
it's been fun.
Yeah, our dancing has allowed us to not only travel, but we've been able to dance in front of groups of people that we wouldn't normally have gotten to. So in our years of dancing, we were a part of the Denver March Powwow dance troupe when we lived in Denver. And during that time frame, we actually danced at the G8 summit which was for the world leaders
Mhm.
at that time. And so actually Ace opened up the show when that happened. And who was there? Was it Gorbachev? President Clinton was the
Clinton was
president
there.
at that time, and there were other world leaders. We also opened up for the John Butler Trio at Red
Red
Rocks
Rocks.
Amphitheater in Denver. We got to perform with him, and I think he's more well known in Australia, but we were able to do that twice. So not only did I dance for Clinton, but I danced for President Reagan back in the early 80s at the Kennedy Center for a function called Night of the First Americans. And porcupine singers who are from Pine Ridge Reservation were actually singing for us at that time. And there's somebody, Melvin Youngbear has a picture of us from that night. So lots of good memories. You just never know where dancing can take you. And we have friends who travel, you know, to Europe to do performances. So dancing can definitely help you meet people and go to places that you've never been to before. So those are just some of the performances that we were able to do. But we've always done performances. There's actually a picture of Ace that we have when he was probably about 8 years old, that he's dancing at, I think it's a church,
Yep.
because there's nuns in the background. So I don't know, it's been a long time experience for us.
Cultural wise, my grandmother Mildred, you know, in the time that I was around Rapid City, this is back in the 70s, there was a lot of things were happening for my reservation back then. But my grandma tried to bring Native American cultural awareness. She was doing it back then, and that's where we were doing school performances for boys club, for churches, like the parade, and you know, Central States Fair parade and things like that, just to let people be aware of our culture, our way of life, being Native American, you know. So and yeah, you don't know where it's going to take you, but you sure do have fun.
Let's look at one of the additional questions that has come up. They're asking, what do you think we can do to make powwows more traditional?
Get rid of the money, but once you do that, you'll lose your crowd. And if you want it to be traditional, yeah, that's how it would have to happen. I hate to say that because nowadays it's all about competition, and there are people out there that make their living off of it, and which isn't a bad thing. But you can incorporate a contest into it, but just don't make that the main object. You know, put in their naming ceremonies, and whether you go to, let's say you do have a powwow, and let's say I'm putting a powwow on, or we are, and we advertise First place is $2,000 in all adult categories, golden age. Teens is 1,000. Juniors is 700, like that, something like that. But then on that poster, if you want to make it traditional, you'll say afternoons, naming ceremonies, veterans coming home, or a veteran from past wars might have received a medal or something like that. That's how you would make it traditional. And the contest part, you can let them dance in the evening if you want. Just run straight contest. But it's all about bringing in the way it was to receive, like my wife was saying, she received her eagle feather, her Indian name, and the right to dance. Those are things that should happen to make it a traditional powwow, because the contest wasn't always there. I mean, it wasn't all about money. And like I said, a long time ago when I traveled around, a majority of it was, there was naming ceremonies and families were feeding because of something good happened in their family or to one of their members. So that's how you can make it traditional again, by eliminating some of the contest. But if you want a real big contest and you want all the big name dancers to show up, and you want the top MCs, the ones with big names and big drum groups and all that, then you won't be doing no traditional powwow. That's just the way it is.
All right, let's look at the next question. What are your personal viewpoints on contemporary styles of regalia? Was it easier to tell where a dancer is from in previous years than now? Yes.
Yes,
So-
it was very easy, because each, like I said, the Plains tribes, we have distinctive types of designs that go with the way I dance with my style. And the same with the Arikarans, the Crows, the Shoshones, the Arapahoes. Everybody had a design of some sort that you could tell, oh, that person came from, Etha, Wyoming, or that person came out of Crow Agency or something like that. But nowadays, it's kind of hard to tell, because there's
so much intertribal going on.
yeah, I mean,
People are using designs from other tribes because they like them, and more power to them. But then it kind of takes away from their own tribal identity. Back in the day, you could tell where people were from based on their outfits, but not so much now. And there is a lot of bling going on right now with fancy shawl and jingle, but you know what? I like bling. I like I like the fancy stuff, but I think, people just need to be mindful not to get too carried away. But it seems like there are some tribes that might not be
like, for instance, the woodland dancers, that's coming around now. I think the first time I seen a woodland dancer might have been 5, 6 years ago. Really didn't know much about it. But if you look at their style of dance, you could tell just by their regalia, their headdresses, their everything about them. You could tell they're a woodland dancer because they all dress that same way. Whereas nowadays in the northern men's traditional, it's hard to say where they're from, because I mean, some guys got a whole bunch of feathers on, but you could still distinguish the ones that kind of stay true to their culture, to their tribe, because they'll wear the otter strap, or might have a beat up vest, or they might just dance with the breastplate, their head roach. Also the sticks that they carry, they call them coup sticks. And then some of those that they carry. You can tell where people come from. Nowadays, to me, honestly, and I'm just being honest with you, whoever asked that question, everybody looks the same. Everybody does. And men's traditional. Men's fancy is about the same. Because like my wife said, there was two styles, northern and southern. So you could tell a northern fancy dancer from a southern fancy dancer. Their outfits were typically the same. A northern had a little bit different fancy dance bustle. A southern had more of a round. And the southern wore these straps on the back of their calves on their angoras, where northern didn't. And you could tell those were northern and southern. Nowadays, they pretty much all look the same, and some are from down south and some are from up north, but they dress exactly the same. Same with the grass dancers.
The next question, do you prefer inside or outside powwows? What is the packing 101 and things for dancers to always have on hand? Have you both started to pack lighter as years went on? Yes. I have started packing lighter. I don't like to carry around my big old heavy suitcase anymore. Because of my age, I think I prefer indoor powwows sometimes, especially if it's in 100-degree weather.
Yeah.
But at nighttime, I love to dance outside, to be under the stars and the powwows jamming, or even walking from the back area. You can look at the dance arena and you can see like the dust. You can see the event happening and the sounds of a powwow, people laughing and joking, and that's
So
always
101
fun.
packing, in my case, I never unpacked. Because the next weekend I was leaving already. I mean, maybe Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I was already going somewhere else. That's how committed I was to it back when I was single and younger. But packing nowadays, try to make sure I have extra clothes, you know, bring your own chair just in case if you, even at these indoor powwows, some of them you got spectators that come in, so they want to sit down. You got dancers that want to sit in the chairs in the bleachers or whatever. So it gets filled up fast. So bring your own chair, so that way you might be able to, sit down on the main floor or something if you have your own chair. Yeah, that's if you're going to do outside powwow, all depends where you go. Take mosquito repellent. Take mosquito repellent because you will need that.
Well, the big difference between us is, like he said, he just keeps his stuff packed. Whereas before I go someplace, I have to look at my suitcase again, take everything out and make sure everything is packed the way I want. I make sure all of my knots are taken out of my hair ties because maybe I was in a rush to get undressed and I didn't fully take out all my knots. I make sure that that's done. I make sure my scarves are clean and ironed, my shawls, that they're not wrinkled, my dresses. So I don't know if it's just being a woman or the type of outfit I have, but it just takes me longer when we pack to get ready to go somewhere. And he just stays packed. What was the next part to that question? Have you both started to pack lighter? Yes.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I used to take almost everything just in case I needed it or something came up and I would need to change, or maybe somebody might need, I don't know, an extra shawl or something. I always had extra things on hand, but nowadays it's just too heavy to lug things up a flight or 2 flights of steps, depending on where you're going. So
I used to take
definitely
like
pack lighter.
I would have like 7 or 8 shirts, a different shirt for every session. Whereas now, maybe I have 3 shirts, one for each day now, because the way it's going, I don't dance until late in the night, or I don't dance until early in the afternoon, and then I'm done. Whereas a long time ago, you contest it in the afternoon and you contest it in the evening. It wasn't the tiny tots, juniors, teens, golden age, and then In the evenings, it was the adults. Everybody contested at one time, and then everybody contested again. So you always change shirts because you don't want to be wearing the same one over and over.
Yeah, you don't want to be stinky on the dance floor either.
Take
A
cologne.
no-go.
Yeah, that's a big no-go.
Before we go to the next question, there's a couple items I wanted to mention. So when you're at a powwow, there are some key positions that go on there. You're going to have your MC,
MCs, your arena directors,
arena
your head
director.
dancers, head judges, I should say, your
mm-hmm,
drum judge.
your drum
Those are the ones that they put in, as they say, they put in their time. They've learned how the powwow should run, how it goes, and some of them are very respected because of their jobs that they have. Not everybody powwows just to survive on a powwow paycheck. Many of them are educated doctors. They went on, got their education, got degrees. Some are blue collar workers. They'll go powwow and then try and get home Monday morning for work. So they get respect, and that's how they get to those spots, because they've learned how the protocols are like a singing judge. They'll ask them to come down because they might know all these songs, that appropriate songs for everything. There's just not a hey song for everything. There's different songs for different things. And some of the singing judges, they ask, those guys really know all those songs. Same with the dancers, dance judges, head man, head woman normally are your dance judges.
At different times, we've been head dancers for different events. So it's important as a head dancer that you know what type of song is being sung.
Yeah.
You want to make sure
Very
that you're leading the people to the right, dancing the right style to the right song. But as arena director, so Ace has been arena director a couple times, actually more than a couple times. So like this weekend, we're going to
Jackson Hole,
at Jackson
Wyoming.
Hole. He's going to be arena director. And then he was arena director at Oglala Nation last summer. Part of his job was you make sure that the powwow goes smoothly.
I mean, as arena director, the powwow committee will ask you to do that part so that the powwow is ran on time. It's like some of the indoor powwows, there's a time frame that they want to get done, so you have to kind of push it, not lollygag around like you could do at say your community powwow. You can take your time and stuff like that. Whereas these big contest powwows, you got to be on the ball, you got to go. And then that's where they ask people to come and do things because they've done it. Like myself, I've done it enough times that I know how to keep it moving, not let the powwow go off track or anything, keep it straight on track, and make sure that people are having fun and feathers are dropped. That's another thing. If you're a dancer, check your feathers, check your plumes. I say I don't unpack my stuff. I do, but I check my feathers and I check my plumes because those were given to you um by your family or something. So take care of them, take the time, check the thread, check the leather, make sure it's not frayed or anything, and make sure it's always secured. Because at a powwow, when you drop that feather, that feather could be taken from you, and that person that picked it up can have it. Because in a way, you're kind of saying, I don't want it no more. I didn't care to take care of it. So, that person might say, okay, well, I'll take it home. Or they might give it back to you and give you words of encouragement and tell you, take it home, fix it, and put it back on and keep dancing. But those are some of the things that an arena director has to take care of, and making sure the drums are ready to go and sometimes an arena director will take on all the responsibility of the judges, the drums, the dancers. So it's a lot of there's a lot to be expected from you. But at the same time, like I said, if you love to powwow like I do, and my wife and my daughters, it's not hard to do.
Part of what the arena director does is he helps line up for grand entry, making sure, you know, the color guard is up front, and then any dignitaries, and then your princesses, and then the dance contest categories come in, depending on how the arena director sets them up. But we can't talk about powwows without mentioning the princesses. So both of our daughters, Larissa and Lara, were princesses at different times. And I was a princess myself when I was younger. So that's something that, you know, we honor our young women. Depending on the title, sometimes a powwow committee or community might recognize a young woman and ask her to represent them for a year. Or it might be an actual pageant for some of the larger titles that a young woman will enter, and they're judged on public speaking, their cultural knowledge, dance styles. It just really depends on the pageant. So when the princesses come in, these are young women that are held in high regard. And oftentimes, if they're giving up their titles, their family will have a giveaway for them or some type of contest special. Or sometimes the family will feed at that powwow, at that event, to honor their young women. So when you see them come in, you know, they're honorable, you know, and I know some younger people don't really see it that way. They, oh, their princesses are coming in. Well, yes, they are coming in. They're representing their respective communities, and that's an important thing, and it's to be
Communities,
cherished.
families. Yeah.
It's to be cherished.
Oh.
So, how are we doing on time? Oh, it's 6:47.
Wow.
So let's look at the next question. What are the best ways to take care of regalia?
Well, wash your shirts, um, your women's fancy or jingle. Um, it's kind of a little bit tougher to take care of some of that stuff because it's like real fancy material. So, what do you mean, like in regalias? That's for like men or women or feathers, or because if it's feathers, you want to, like I said, make sure you check them and they're tied on tight and their leather's good and stuff.
I'll speak to how I take care of my stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a fan case, which I
Put
don't
all
have
your
it here.
feathers in.
I put my feathers in it, and it's like kind of an erect or a triangle shape, and there's a big zipper on the side. So I always make sure my center feather is in there, my plumes, and my fan. And our girls also have their fan cases. If I've got something that's parfletch, I make sure that it doesn't get wet. And when I pack it, I make sure that it's between something stiff so it keeps its shape. You want to make sure that it does that. So I've got dentalium shell earrings on today, but I also have dentalium shell hair ties for my outfit. And I actually I went to a thrift store and I found, actually it's a pasta holder, but it's the perfect size for my hair ties, for my dentalium shell hair ties. I just fold them in half and I put them in there. That way it keeps them secure and they're not going to get smashed in the suitcase, because let's face it, you're going to be packing your suitcase down tight and zipping it up. So just make sure that you put stuff away carefully, that it's flat. You know, I know that sometimes we're in a rush for things, but try to pack your stuff
And for like
carefully.
leather, you don't ever want to put I mean, you might have to, but you don't ever want to put your stuff away when it's damp or anything like that, because if you do, when you get home, take it out right away that night, that next morning, take it out and let it air dry, because that dampness will ruin that leather. Washing your beadwork, throw it in a pillowcase, tie it in a knot, and put it in the washing machine.
On a low setting, on
Yeah.
the casual setting or a delicate cycle. Or you
Your
can hand zip them.
moccasins, if you dance outside and it's wet, majority of the time your souls will get ruined. There's this little bit, little tricks and trades here that you learn over the years to take care of your stuff. And for like me, like I said, I don't unpack, so I just put more cologne on it.
Ah, don't say that.
So if you ever see me and I'm smelling really good, no, I'm just kind of, but
Jeez.
yeah, so that's kind of, you want to keep your feathers, like my bustle, I'll keep it rolled up, especially if I'm going on long trips, I'll roll it up so that it's not being beat up or anything, or pack it all into my suitcase. And the question earlier was, are you packing lighter? I can, but I still do have my big suitcase where I could put everything into it. And I have one suitcase to pull around.
All right, let's look at the next question. Looks like it's a two-parter here. How do you both see connecting the gap between both natives and non-native worlds? And then are there any gender-specific protocols and do they apply to modern times? So let's look at the
What was
first
the
part.
first part?
How do you both see connecting the gap between both natives and non-native worlds?
Bills. No, I'm just kidding. It's, the non-native world, and it's very important that they learn our cultural ways, our, like, not just only, not our ceremony ways, but our like powwow ways. Because we go to concerts, um, we go to non-native venues, and once they find out that we're Native American, they start asking questions. But when people ask to come to the powwow or something, I always tell them, show respect to these people. Don't just go up and, touch everything and whatnot. You don't do that at a concert. You don't go up there and just start bugging everybody. Probably get kicked out. But so it's good to have non-natives there so that they get an understanding of the Native American way of life.
When I was young, I used to wish that I had my own TV show so I could show people what natives were like, because it's probably because of how I grew up. Growing up in the city and the schools I went to, I was usually the only native in the entire school. So I always wanted to educate non-natives about natives. And I think that's probably why I ran for the Miss Indian Nations title that I had won, was because I wanted to be able to get the word out to everybody. And in my travels, actually at the time I lived in Denver, but I traveled to Rapid City and they took us to all the tourist sites. And I was able to talk with people about natives and invite them to the upcoming powwow that was happening in that area at that time. But I always wanted people to have a healthy respect, but I was also open to answering their questions about, things about my tribe or about natives in general, about powwows. We know that there's natives who don't participate in powwows. There's other cultural activities, and what is that, so I was always interested in other tribes. So it's not just natives and non-natives, it's, other tribes, that
Yeah.
you can explore and get to know things about.
What's the other part of the question?
The other part was, are there any gender specific protocols and do they apply to modern times?
That's a tough one to answer.
Well, the first thing off the top of my head, gender protocols, I'm going to say in South Dakota, not so much down south, but in South Dakota, on the dance floor during intertribals, the women dance
Yeah.
in the inside and go clockwise, and then the men dance on the outer part counterclockwise. And that's
And
more for like,
and then like down south, everybody dances in either one direction or the other.
so it's interesting to see people from the South, the males, when they go up north, a lot of them still dance their regular way.
Yeah.
And so you can tell that they're not from that area. Did another question come up? Oh. So we're reaching the point we're going to have to start wrapping things up. We've only got a few minutes left. So
I don't want to stop.
A.
Let's keep going.
Ace is on a roll. He doesn't want to stop.
Well, I hope you guys all learned a little bit about something of the powwow world. And like I said, take the time, take time off and go to, whether you're off to college someplace or you're at home, take the time and go to the powwow, find one, go hang out. Don't make it all about the business side of the world. Enjoy your culture. You're very unique people. You all come from a different tribe. You all have different customs. Learn them, the protocols. If you don't know, go find somebody back home that's old. Because like right now, I got my mom still, 85 years old. I'm trying to get as much knowledge from her as I possibly can right now, which I should have learned a long time ago. But now I'm trying to absorb it all. So go out, learn your ways, your tribal ways. We all don't practice the same. But when you go to a powwow, we're all dancing, having fun. Go on, AJ.
Wow. Well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything that you said. Honor your elders. You know, if you can, sit down and have some conversations with them about how things were when they were younger, because you got a wealth of information right there. As far as powwows go, if you're new to it, don't be afraid to ask questions. If it's something that you've been doing, I encourage you to keep, powwowing or dancing, or even if you're just going as a spectator, keep that support up. We dance for you too. That's one of the things I enjoy dancing about is I like to be there knowing that there are people enjoying just us being out there, you know, and I know I don't think Ace realizes this, but he's a favorite amongst some of these older women. They like to watch him dance because he's got that old traditional style that I like. That's always been a favorite of mine. So honor your elders, go to a powwow and just enjoy yourself. Be open to it, be open to the experience. Nowadays, we have lots of tools at our fingertips. We didn't have YouTube when we were growing up. So you can learn dance styles, dance steps, protocols, songs just by going onto YouTube or even TikTok nowadays.
Back in our day, it was the mail, the U.S. Postal. You wrote a letter. But yeah, get out there and have fun. I hope you guys all pick something up. But enjoy yourselves out there this evening. And if you ain't doing nothing, come to Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Yeah.
There's powwows all over.
Maybe we'll see you on the powwow trail.
Yep.
Stop by and say hi. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you all for the students who are joining us tonight. Thank you again, Ace and AJ. We learned a lot. And with that, that'll be the last episode for our Elder series this semester, but thank you.